Hello everyone, it's the Kurano Mythos here. This video is going to be different from what I usually make because I found a theory on Reddit and on Tumblr that states that Stephanie is Jesus, which makes me wonder that there's a theory on her dad, Reverend Putty. And believe me, there is. And it's going to be outlandish, that's for damn sure. And it's also inspired by the wonderful madman known as the Theorizer. He makes wonderful content that is intriguing and horrifying at the same time, so check that channel out. Moral Oral is a fantastically genius show that focuses on religious fundamentalism as it calls out the many hypocritical people who use Christianity as a means to an end. With the internet being interested in theories and analysis and whatnot, I like to break the mold by making a theory analysis on one theory in particular, which is that Reverend Putty is God himself. You heard that right. It was made by a Great Samaritan Chuck over on Reddit of all places, which explains the theory that Reverend Putty was observing the town of Morrilton as a human being before recreating the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah as punishment for their sinful acts. In this video, I'll be taking a look at some points that they made while looking at the parallels that were left out. Even though it is not intended by the creator Dino Stamatopoulos, but we're going to have fun with it. Let's start with the first one, and yeah, Morrilton does not have a squeaky track record for having the most morally good people out there, as almost everybody cheats, lies, sins, etc. And take for instance that, since there's always a witch hungry for power, Fakey wouldn't keep his promise to God that he'll never sin again, Stop Frame caused irreversible damage to the Pumpington family, and Clay's the most irredeemable person in Morrilton. Less said about Creepler the better. It's about time for Earl to get them to the right path, as a lot of characters have their own struggles. He goes to church a lot as he's a devout Christian. Speaking of which, the church is a very important setting of the show as it showcases Reverend's sermons while also being part of the show's identity and themes, just like the other elements of what it has to offer. That location has appeared in a ton of episodes as Oral tends to misunderstand Rod's sermons, which caused the plot of the episode to happen. Just like how God and everything about or related to him is the center of the Bible. Also, the kingdom of heaven is his rule over the known universe, just like how the church is the center of Morrilton. Take a look at one of the images I found on Google about it, and you can see the resemblance. It is also the setting where the newest pieces of Moral Oral media take place, as Reverend has shown to be a comedian.
Revs, you may ask, what's the easiest way to get to heaven? Well, I've got an answer that's gonna lay you flat on your ass. The easiest way to get into heaven is hard work. See what I did? I turned it around on you.
Or at least he tries to be a comedian anyway. However, I found something that is right under our noses. But first, we need to find a connection to it. That's where the episode called Grounded comes in. After Dewey puts the metal cross on top of the church Oral made, he almost dies, because the cross acted like a lightning rod. A rod, you say? I've heard that word before. I've seen that word before. Don't you tell me that.
Call me Rod.
I don't know how to tell you this, but it kinda rhymes with God. Let's move on with B before I have a panic attack. Stephanie is a soft-spoken punk lesbian who is one of the many people of Morrilton to show empathy and compassion towards others, as she never judged them and accepts them for who they are, even though their beliefs may most certainly not match hers. In the episode called Be Fruitful and Multiply, Reverend tries to date her even though she's his daughter, but he never heard how it was the case until she tells him the story of how she was conceived, when Gladys stalked him and snuck in through the window so she can steal his tissues. Stephanie also showed him the same tissue pail her mother stole and gave to her before she died. She was conceived without any physical intercourse at all, just like how Jesus was conceived by Mary, through the Holy Spirit, which is the third person Trinity. The people of Morrilton kind of look down on her because she is the antithesis of the town's ideology. However, when Aurel met her for the first time, he never judged her at all for her beliefs, leading her to have a soft spot for him and become his mentor. Even though she does questionable things like giving Aurel Prince Albert piercing and kinda kidnap Christina, but it's always portrayed as a good thing by the show cause she cares about the people, unlike most of the residents in Morrilton. Similar to how Jesus was the mentor to the apostles and the Christians. Another connection can be made, which is that Jesus was a virgin. The same thing can be said for Stephanie, as she's afraid of her maternal pangs, as she does not want to be a mother to the point of piercing herself to suppressing it. She also does it to calm herself down since she's got a lot of repressed anger to the point where it may be considered unhealthy. I really feel bad for her, to be honest. She also made a quick cameo in School Pageant where Aurel sang "I Hate You, Jesus." And I noticed that two of the items she has in her store are Sodomizing Jelly and Gamorizing Valve, and they're right next to each other. Aurel loves God and Jesus so much that he'll go with what Reverend's sermons say. He obviously loves the church so much that he goes through an actual withdrawal after Clay unfairly bans him from seeing it. That makes him desperate to the point where he has a near-death experience. Also, the unhinged stuff he did is his naivety misunderstanding Reverend's sermons. Another note to add is that in one episode, God pats him on the head, similar to when Reverend gave him a pat on the head as well. It's like it's teasing us from the very start. Take a look at both of them side by side and you can see that I did not fly from the fucking cuckoo's nest. Even though the town is full of miserable, religious, sinful hypocrites, he's almost too pure to be corrupted, as he shows kindness, empathy, compassion, and all the things that are good and holy. However, Clay's goal is to shape the boy into being just like him, and he almost unintentionally succeeded with him being a depressed, miserable person. But it's when Blabberta took notice and made Clay have a talk to Aurel is what prevented him from going down that path. Even though some horrible stuff happened to the boy. However, it did not traumatize him like the episode when they went on the hunting trip. Even though what Clay did before was unforgivable, it did not come close to him shooting his son in the leg, blaming him for it, and drinking the bottle of disinfectant that he had. That changed the boy into who he is from now on. He no longer cared about Clay's studies as he became a much more self-aware person as he grew into a loving dad, not having to live in misery. Had the show went on, he would teach the town into being good people through his faith and the things that he learned from proper people, like Stephanie, Arthur, and maybe Reverend. Speaking of which, he is the narrator for the end of the episode, as he says that he is just a puppet for the big guy. Even though it might be true, however, it would be fun for me to think that he's just messing with the audience and hiding his true nature. I bet that he got in touch with Aurel multiple times after the events of the show, and the amen bit is what reverends do whenever they end a sermon. Like the whole show is his own, perhaps? Reverend sometimes gets the short end of the stick with him not getting women, people who have better lives than him, etc, etc. With the many zealots who live in Morrilton, I bet there will be some who ridicule him. Like Clay and Blabberta, for example. Revs hates him because he has a better life than him, which he thinks it's the case, even though it's most certainly not true. Wait, I think I'm onto something. This scene where he gets upset at Aurel for coming to see Jesus instead of him had made me seize an opportunity to discuss his jealousy. Yep, both him and God are jealous. One instance is that when Fakey came to him that he had intercourse with Bendy, he gets upset at him for doing a deed before he could get the opportunity. Another instance is when the kids favor Bartholomew over him, the Reverend growls at him for it. Later, for some people to get angry at the poor dog for some reason or another to have him euthanized. I knew that he's heavily implied to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, but for this theory, it could be that he is his pet that got out, or he did this as a way to test the town, which is messed up on so many levels. One odd but kinda important thing to mention is when Oral asks Rod if God is a lie, he goes off on the boy saying, "What do you mean by heckling me up there?" And after he tells the Reverend his name, he tells him that no one questions him and no one questions God. That is kinda up for you to decide because of how it meant, so on and so forth. But after judging what we learned from it, it could be him wearing a mask to hide his true identity. And for God's side, let's start with this verse, which states, "For you must not worship any other god, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God." Oddly familiar, don't you think? Here's another one. "You shall not bow to them or worship, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on their children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. And this, for the Lord your God, who is among you, is a jealous God. Otherwise, the anger of the Lord your God will be kindled against you, and he will wipe you off the face of the earth." The difference is that God has proprietary rights for them, as they are his creations after all. Not only that, but he also wants his relationship with humanity to be healthy for the same reason. On the other hand, Reverend is jealous because he wants to have someone in his life that loves him.
We need others in our life as a constant reminder that we're not the center of the universe. Because there's only one person who's reserved that particular section of the cosmos. You know who that is, ladies. Amen.
I beg your pardon? Say that again.
Because there's only one person who's reserved that particular section of the cosmos. You know who that is, ladies.
In the first episode, he calls his expression magnificent, big, and dumb. Even though it may come together, but the Lord is not truly alone. He's got his angels and those who come to heaven, but wait, you want to know who's also not truly alone? Reverend has Stephanie, of course, and maybe Oral when Child Protective Services comes in. Now onto the stuff that I'll add to see if there's more evidence. How about we start with the Posabiles, because I really wanted to get out of the way. They are a family that look like, act like, and have the same voice actors as them with small differences. Even though there were a ton of characters that have the same voice actor as Bretta Phillips. But the Posabiles are strange because how could there be two families that look exactly like each other? Well, almost. Look at the skull structure and see what I mean. Look at Christina and her father, and look at Clay and Oral. This could not be a coincidence. Even though there's a chance that people will notice each other, let alone two completely different families, it is still very low in this specific case. It's the fact that Clay turned Moulton into a 1950s themed town where radios were placed in a ton of homes and payphones littered every street. There's a 0% chance that Clay would allow any kind of technology like phones to be near his town. It is important to note that he's the same person who cannot handle slang, considering the fact that it was popular in the 2000s and it still is today. Considering Art has the same personality as him, we can infer that he has the same fear too. which is likely that he convinced his family to move from their old town to Morrilton. Later for them to realize that it's a Protestant town, which makes them move out again. Maybe it's Reverend testing Clay again by meeting himself later for him to notice that he's Catholic perhaps? Not to mention that there's a possibility that it's to test Oral by having him meet Christina for the first time. Another one I wanted to get out of the way is the Geniuses ending, because what the hell is this? I know it's something not to take seriously, but what's the fun in that when I can just look into the intro? The gag is that when the Lord goes down from the heavens to see Oral, a bunch of stuff happens. Like animals having souls, but Lorda doesn't even have a clue that it's a thing.
You see, animals have no souls whatsoever.
This?
Hi, God! Hi, God!
The boy taking a picture of him, the Lord signing his autograph, and them playing baseball. And even abstinence because it was put together by Morgan and David and the team behind the show. The intro is normal at first. But when we go inside the church, not only Oral was looking at God, but Dowie was looking at him too. Alright, just calm down. It can't get any more crazier than that. Well, all the gags are about the relationship outside the actual episodes. Maybe it's that Oral saw what Reverend's identity is, however he couldn't figure it out because mortals can't see who he actually really is. If you think that's outlandish, you might want to sit down for what I'm about to tell you for the next whatever minutes I have before my mind snaps like an actual twig. The naive boy used the Necronomicon to bring people back from the dead because he was told that it spits at the face of God. This book originated from H.P. Lovecraft, then became integrated into pulp culture as a book of evil magic, as the Cthulhu mythos is a universe about eldritch things breaking reality and being above our understanding. Even though Christianity is much more hopeful, it too has several Lovecraftian elements, like the angels, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot's wife being turned into a pillar of salt. Speaking of dark magic and all of that, there is one person I can call a witch, which is Miss Sensible, a bitter woman who has a power fantasy about taking over Morrilton and likes to shove her view into everybody's throats. She also loves eggs due to her private parts being removed by her own mother. However, that does not excuse her actions. Even though she's an old lady, there's some speculation that she might have powers somehow. Let's start with her relationship with Clay. She controls him to some degree and would threaten his job if she doesn't get her way. However, it's his choices in life that made everything crumble around him. He was never really a good person to begin with, as he played with his mother's emotions to test her love towards him by making a fake wound and shooting a gun, causing his mother to die due to her having a weak heart and his father, Arthur, hating him for it. He has been pampered too much by his mother, and probably lack of socialization made him become a selfish kid that caused his mother's death, after realizing that he had 10 siblings. Sensible planned to seduce him by offering him to be his mistress and took advantage of his Oedipus complex to get what she wants on. However, on Clay's side, he was skeptical about her and begged Oral to know the truth, but that did not work, so he went to her, which then leads to her saying that he'll do whatever he wants as long as she says he can. We can infer that her supernaturality is psychological. However, that would be absolutely moronic for me to say that it caused the horrible events of nature and the other atrocious shit that Clay has done. It is implied that she observed the hunting trip, however, it doesn't mean that she caused it in any way. We can infer that her manipulation is a bit limited, as she can possibly use her powers on the phone, but can't physically control their minds. She needs to use her words and fear to control the town. However, it won't corrupt Oral though, as he is way too pure, which has led to him to convince Clay to ban eggs, which has led to her temporary defeat. Alright, enough of the characters, let's look at the geography. Look at this. No United Kingdom, no Canada, no Central America, no Caribbean, and no Alaska. What made God so mad that he would obliterate them out of existence? Even though it's suspicious, but it's not as egregious as whatever this is. Some hidden lore we didn't see. Enough of that, let's look into innocence. In the episode, the I Hate You Jesus song became popular throughout Moulton, which worried Oral's God-loving soul. He tells Reverend about it, which leads to him realizing that singing that song would soon cause fires, plague, boils, and locusts, not to mention the dead rising up from their graves. Even though those things are already in the show, the locusts appear in this episode, as one sits on top of Oral's shoulder and then flies into Reverend's mouth, causing him to gather everybody into the church. So God has the ability to shoot lightning, cause plagues, create zombies, start fires, cause boils, and cause swarms of locusts to attack people. Then there's Elemental Oral. In the episode, Reverend said that it's his money. Oral woke him up in his own church, like God rested on the seventh day. After he teaches the boy about bigamy, he tells him to get the money or else God finds out. Pretty suspicious, if you ask me. Still not convinced? Well, there's more. Oral buys a Jesus bobblehead from the Believe It or Else Museum. That's what I think it is. He meets a man on the bus named Dr. Chosenberg who wears a David pendant that he believes that he never feels safe without it, which is 100% understandably valid. The boy tells him that it's disrespectful to throw it in the toilet or off a cliff, but then he notices Mr. Figarelli doesn't have a symbol, so it comes to show him his figure, which causes the bus to crash, which sends it flying into the doctor's chest. At the hospital, Chosenberg was horrifically subjected to various disgusting methods, like having some really sick people kissing his wound, all because it looked like Jesus' face. Oral puts his bobblehead on the table and positions it next to the doctor, which leads him to put his pendant into the medicine, mix it all up, and blow a bubble on the wound, causing it to heal. Next morning, even though he has a nasty ton of infections, he is still alive, winking at Oral. This poor man did not have to go through all that torture. But wait, I have found more evidence. In Trust, there's an important detail is that the crane appears in some of Oral's scenes. It also appears in nature, appearing as a symbol of his innocence, fleeting away as he learns the truth about his father. They act like vigilant messengers between heaven and the earth. So maybe God sent one down to check up on the boy. So all of this is about God this and God that. And if we know so much about this version of God, then what about Satan? Coach Stopframe becomes a Satanist after he hears Reverend saying that homosexuality is a joke because man can't produce a child, and the only one laughing is Satan. He asks Oral about getting Clay's hair since a satanic love spell involves a hair belonging to a desired person. That's after he calls a group of cultists who talk to him about helping him with the ritual. The boy was brought by him cause Flagron asked him to bring a virgin along. Later to find out that it's full of overweight hedonistic nerds who believe that Satan is a force of nature, not a real guy. Stopframe understandably gets uneasy by this and leaves the party with Oral. So, what's the validity behind it really? And why is Reverend not as perfect as God? It's because he needs to test the town by him having the same sins as humans to truly feel like them, so that he could live with them alongside Jesus living in the town as well. He wants to get into character with his Reverend self so that he can conduct the experiment because he doesn't want mass hysteria. But I don't think he'll destroy Moralton. Why? Because he discovered that there's a kind, wholesome boy in the town. So he kept his eye on him at all times. Which leads to two different endings. It's either the destruction of Moralton or Oral helping the town become better people, which makes God spare them. Which I think the latter is more likely because of the boy's naive but almost incorruptible cheerful attitude that has no room for hate. Besides, his wholesome nature is what impresses him more than anything else.
Holy moly! You are pure pureness in its purest form. It's almost irritating. But tell me more, Oral.
So even though the theory is convincing, however, due to the fact that it conflicts with the show's tone is why I have to give it a 9 out of 10. And if there's any info you want to tell me, please do, because it would most certainly help. If there's enough information for me to cover here, there would be a part 2. Maybe. Till then, it's the Chronomythos signing off. I also like to thank these people for subscribing to my channel.